Hello, we have already done a video on budget line wherein we have understood that budget line is a graphical representation of all the possible combinations of two goods which can be purchased with given income and prices such that cost of each of these combinations is equal to money income of the consumer. We had also seen this schedule, the one which you can see on the screen, apples, bananas. We also saw the different combinations and we saw this algebraic representation and we saw this graphical representation, correct? We have understood this much and we understood that the money income of the consumer is like price of apples into quantity of apples plus price of bananas into quantity of bananas. And the consumer will always buy something which is within his budget, okay? Bundles which cost more than the money income, they are unattainable and they lie outside the budget line. And the ones which are, which depict underspending, they'll be below the budget line. Now, today we're going to start with the slope of budget line. Okay. What is the slope of the budget line? Now, we know that slope of any curve is basically calculated as a change in the variable on the y-axis or the vertical axis, and it is divided by the, that means whatever variable you have on the y-axis, the change of that gets divided by the change in the variable of x-axis. Okay, so whatever is there on the y-axis, the change in that divided by the change in variable on the horizontal axis or the x-axis. Okay, so in this example of apples and bananas, basically the slope of budget line will be the number of units of bananas. This is y-axis, which the consumer is willing to sacrifice for the additional unit of apple, that is on the x-axis. So if I write it here, the slope of budget line in this case will be shown as slope of budget line is equal to basically units of bananas that is B, which you are willing to sacrifice, okay, which you are willing to sacrifice, and you divide that by the units of banana apples which you are willing to gain. Okay, so if I divide this by the units of apples willing to gain. Okay, so you can also write it as delta B upon delta A. Okay, so this is delta B upon delta A. So this will basically show you the slope. Now, to understand it better, let us take a look at this combination I and J. Okay, now at J combination, you are at 0 apples. Okay, sorry, this is the J combination at which you have 0 apples and 10 bananas. Okay, now to gain 1 unit of apple, that means if I want to come here, when I want to gain 1 unit of apple, I have to forego 2 units of bananas. Okay, so I come like this. So this becomes 8. Instead of 10, I come to 8. And from this 0, I come to 1. Okay, so this slope, as I told you, slope is the change in the variable on the this y-axis divided by the change on the x-axis, right? So this is nothing but your delta B upon delta A, right? Delta B upon delta A. So delta B is what? 2, okay? And that 2 in minus, right? Because the change is like 8 minus 10 because you are sacrificing it. So you make it minus 2. And what you are gaining is 1. So the slope will be minus 2, but we take an absolute number. So it becomes 2, right? So numerator we know will always have a negative value because it shows the number of units to be sacrificed. But for our own analysis, we take this as an absolute value. So this will be the slope of this budget line, which we have already named as AB. Okay. Now slope of budget line. So you can also see this further, like in this case also, like if I compare H and I, the same story will be applicable here. Because for that, I'll come to 6, from 8 to 6, I come and then 1 more additional apple I gain. So for 1 more, I sacrifice 2 because I have to be within my budget. Okay, we'll understand this in terms of price also. But first, we'll understanding this in terms of number of units. Okay. Now, this slope of budget line is also known as the market rate of exchange. You sometimes also name it as MRE. This is your market rate of exchange. Okay, market rate of exchange. So if somebody asks you what is market rate of exchange, so that is also the rate at which one good is sacrificed in the market to obtain one extra unit of other goods. Okay, so that's the same thing. Now, budget line you can also depict, as I was telling you, as the price ratio. Okay. Now let us understand how budget line can be depicted as the price ratio of these two words. That means what I'm trying to say is that the slope of the budget line or the budget line can also be referred to as Px upon Py. Okay. So if I plot good X on X axis and good Y on Y axis, then this is the price ratio. So basically, what is a price ratio? Price ratio is the price of good on the x-axis upon or divided by the price of good on the y-axis. That is your vertical one. Okay. So this is basically your price ratio. Now we are going to prove that the slope of the budget line is nothing but this price ratio. Okay. We're going to prove this right now. That slope of budget line is this price ratio. Now let us understand this, why we can understand why we sometimes say that slope of the budget line is also represented by price ratio. Now let us understand this. See, a budget line always indicates a bundle which the consumer can purchase by spending his entire income. Okay, any point on the budget line. Supposing I take this point which I've already taken, or let us say I take this particular point. So it will always represent that bundle which a consumer can purchase by spending his entire income, right? So if the consumer wants to have one more unit of good one, let us say these apples, then he'll have to give up some amount of good two, that is your bananas, right? So that means, let us say this, from this place to this place, if you are moving, or you're moving from this place to this place, when you want to add one more apple here and add one more apple here, so for this you have to forego some amounts of bananas. Okay, now let us consider this in price terms. Okay, देखिए, apple का what is the price of apple? That is rupees 4. Okay, what is the price of apple? Rupees 4. And bananas, the price is rupees 2. Okay, so that means if I have to go from 0 to 1, that means I have to purchase one more apple, so I have to spend 4 rupees. Okay, so when I have to forego bananas, I'll forego in such a way that I save 4 rupees so that I can spend here. Banana is priced at 2. So that means I have to forego 2 bananas. And that's what I'm doing here. Out from 10, I'm coming to 8. 4 rupees I need for one apple. How will I get that 4 rupee? From this. Okay, I'll save from my bananas. So how much do I save? I do not eat 2 bananas because that saves my rupees 2 per banana, and that gives me rupees 4 to spend on apples, right? So basically, to gain one apple, the consumer has to reduce his expenditure on bananas. Okay, and how much expenditure he needs to reduce? He needs to reduce it by 4. So consumer sacrifices 2 bananas to gain one apple. Okay, so that means he will have to give this PA upon PB units. Basically, consumer will have to give PA upon PB units of bananas to gain one apple. That means this PA upon PB is nothing but your price. That means 4 is the price of apple upon 2 is the price of banana. So that gives you 2. So this is the same thing. Okay. So price ratio also indicates the slope of budget line. Correct? So what I want to say is consumer will have to give PA upon PB units of bananas to gain one apple, and PA upon PB is nothing but your price ratio between apples and bananas. So in a way, what we say is that price ratio will indicate the slope of budget line. Okay. And since we have already assumed this Px and Py, that is the price of the two commodities, to be constant, we have assumed the price to be constant. Okay. On this basis only, we are computing delta x, delta y. The change is also on the same basis. So basically, the price ratio will remain constant. Okay. The price ratio will remain constant. And that means the slope will remain constant. Okay. That means the slope will also remain constant. I hope this much is clear. Now let us take a look at some of the properties of budget line. let us take a look at some properties of budget line. Now, the first thing is it is a downward sloping curve, which we have already seen. Okay, it is a downward sloping curve. It has a, what you can say, a negative slope because you forego certain items, you know. It has a negative slope because that means it slopes downward. What you can say is why it has a negative slope, because it slopes downward. And why does it slope downward? Because more of one good, that is in our case we had apples, okay, so more of one good can be bought by decreasing some units of other good. Correct? Is it okay? Yes, so that is why it has a downward sloping curve. Second thing is it is a straight line. Budget line has to be a straight line. Now, why it is a straight line? Because we know that the slope is represented by price ratio, right? The slope, because any curve, what is the shape of any curve is determined by its slope. Here, slope is the price ratio and price ratio is constant. Okay. So, since price ratio is constant, the slope is also constant. So, budget line is a straight line. Okay. So, these are the two properties of a budget line which you have to keep in mind. Now, does the budget line ever shift? Let us understand that. Does the budget line ever shift? Let us understand. And after that, we'll take a quick recap from the module also. Now, does the budget line ever shift? Yes, it does. Okay, it does. And it shifts both ways. We'll see that. Let us now understand the concept of shift in budget line. Now, budget line we have seen is drawn with certain assumption. That is, the income is constant, the prices are constant, right? So basically, if this income, we can say delta Y, if there is a change in income or if there is a change in the price of commodities, then this is bound to move, right? So if my income changes or if the price of the commodity changes, budget line will definitely shift. So let us now understand the impact of these. Now let us see the effect of change in the income first. Let us see the effect of change in the income of consumer. In the income of consumer. Now, let us say if there is a change in the income, no change in the prices. Okay, we are not assuming any change in the prices of apples or bananas. Then let us see how the budget line will shift. See what happens is if your income increases, okay, then you are able to buy more bundle. That means previously, if you were at, let us say, a bundle of 4 or 2, like we had 4 apples and 2 bananas. Okay. So now, because you had income in hand of 20 rupees, so you could buy this much. Now your income increases, let us say, to 40 or 90, then probably you can buy more. Okay. Depending on the price, obviously. You can buy 5 apples or 4 bananas or whatever. You can divide and find it out. So the more your income, the more bundles of that commodity you can buy. Okay, so more bundles of goods can be bought. Correct. So now basically with this, what happens is that previously, if your budget line was here, it is going to shift here because the maximum of apples as well as maximum of bananas, that's going to increase. Okay. So with, let us say with 90 rupees in hand, you'll be able to buy more number of apples and more number of bananas. Fine. So your budget line is going to shift this side. And vice versa, if your income reduces, then it's going to shift leftwards, right? So the rightward shift is basically because of increase in income, and leftward shift is because of decrease in income. Clear? So does the budget line shift? Yes. Due to income? Yes. How? We have understood it. Okay. Because previously, supposing we had 20. Now, if we had only 10 rupees with us, now what happens? So apple was priced at rupees 4, banana was priced at rupees 2. So maybe we can just have 5 bananas and 0 apples, right? Whereas if you see the table which we had done, in that case with 5 bananas, we did not have a combination of 5, but with 6 bananas, I can see 2 apples to be bought. But today, if I take 5 bananas, I cannot afford any apple. So this is the impact of the change in income, correct? Now, Why is this new budget line actually parallel to the original budget line? Have you ever thought? Why is this new budget line parallel to the original budget line? Because there is no change in the slope. Okay. The most important thing is this is parallel to the original because the slope remains the same. No change in slope. Prices में तो कोई change ही नहीं हुआ ना बेटा. So no change in slope. Basically, we have, as of now, we have just seen, we have just observed the change in income. So there is no change in slope also. Okay. Slope is calculated again on the basis of y-axis, x-axis, and here income does not disturb the price ratio. So there is no change. Correct. Now let us take impact of the changes in prices. Okay. Let us see if there is a change in prices. Then what happens? Okay. Now there can be three situations in this also. There is a change in price of both commodities. Change in price of both commodities. Or there can be a change in price of commodity on x-axis. This is x-axis commodity. And then there is a change in price of y-axis commodity. Okay. So these are the three situations which can occur. Now let us see what is the impact of this. First of all, let us take this case when the change in price on the x-axis. This one. Let's take this one first. Okay. Now, when let us say the price of apples falls. Okay, let us assume the situation that price of apples falls. Now, in this case, if there is a budget line which was like this, wherein apples were here and bananas were here, and this was the original budget line. Now, when the price of the apples fall, that means you'll be now able to buy more number of apples with the same income, right? So in this case, the budget line will shift from this A, B point to probably a point here, which is here. We'll be able to buy more apples. Bananas, there's going to be no change. So maybe this point A1 will arise. Okay. And now you can see this is the situation. Correct? So your budget line will shift in this case when there is a change in the price of commodity on x-axis. Okay. If the prices increase, let us say, if it increases, then what happens? You'll be able to buy lesser number of apples. In that case, your budget line will be here. So it's going to be a point A2. So the new budget line will probably be A2, B1. Okay. It's going to remain a straight line only. Please excuse me for this curve sort of thing. It's going to remain a straight line. Okay. So the consumer can now purchase less. So this will shift the budget line from this side. Only from this side is going to move towards left. Okay. Now, what happens if there is a change in the price of bananas and not apples? In that case, the budget line, let us say it was here. Previously, it was here. Now, if the prices of bananas increases, so you'll be able to buy less number of bananas. So the maximum number of bananas will reduce and you'll probably come down to this B2 point. Whereas in case the price of bananas falls, you'll be able to increase the number of bananas in your bundle and the combination will be this. So this one is showing increase in the prices and the other one, A, B1 is showing the decrease. Okay. So this means that whenever there is a change in the price of bananas also, then also the budget line will shift, whether it is increase or decrease. And if there is a change in the price of apples, then also the budget line will shift. Okay. So in this case, it shifts from AB to A1B1, A1B due to decrease in the price of apples, and from AB to A2B due to increase in the price of apples. And in the lower one, it is basically the budget line has shifted from AB to AB1 due to decrease in the price of bananas. And it has shifted from AB to AB2 due to increase in the price of bananas. Okay. So now one more thing I would like to add before I close, that budget line will not change when both income and prices change by the same percentage or in the same direction. Okay. So let us assume that if income rises by 25%, let us say there is an increase of 25% in the income, And simultaneously, there is an increase in the prices also of both the commodities by 25%. Then you can try this. That means both ways there's going to be a change, but somehow the budget line will remain static. So you can just keep that in mind as long as the percentage is same. Okay. So we have understood what is a quick understanding we have taken of the slope of the budget line, price ratio, what are the properties of budget line, and quickly we have gone through the shifts also in budget line, right? Now let us just take a look at what is given in your module, so that if there is any confusion, we can clarify that also. See, here they've taken an example of ice creams and chocolates, and they have told that the budget constraint can be explained by the budget line. What does it show? Okay. Any point outside the price line that is unattainable. So these are the 3 points I mentioned. The budget line will shift when there is a change in the price of one or both the goods with nominal income remaining the same, and a change in the level of nominal income when prices remain the same. Just a second. This one. And change in both income and relative price. So we've already covered all these points, correct? So you can go through this. This is the graph which they have shown. Okay. So with this, I'll close for the time being, and then we'll study the equilibrium, consumers equilibrium, using both indifference curve and the budget line in the next class, with certain observations from budget line. Also, I have to add some more observations. I'll take care of them also in the next class, but please watch this once. Okay, thank you.